didn't.
No.
That would have been a good idea.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
Good.
Good. Nice to see you. Ingrid, hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you? Good. Thank you for the water. All right.
I'm gonna wait to give a dramatic pour. In the public comment.
Okay. So for the BOLI, I
Yeah.
thought I would do the little blurb about what the BOLI is.
Okay.
And then I would just turn it over to you for the motion.
Okay, we have just the minutes. Do you want me to do the motion to approve the minutes?
Oh, no, I thought I would just
Oh,
ask for
okay.
a motion for that. I mean,
Okay.
you're
Yeah,
I'm
no, that's
happy for
great.
you to do it.
No,
I'll
no,
just
that's fine.
ask for it, but then
And then I'll just
for
go into.
agenda item 5, I'll
Yep.
just say trustee Rudolph.
Yeah,
Pretty
pretty
much.
much. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
This was a new amendment to the Open Meetings Act and meeting to increasing
I read that.
So are we talking compensation? We're just talking extension of contract.
We're talking compensation.
Oh, yeah,
So what we should do is talk about
That's great.
extension of a contract. We'll have to deal with the compensation, as you can see.
I thought maybe she wasn't, this didn't apply to her. It probably does. Okay. So then how do we handle that?
We should talk about term, and when we get in there, we'll talk about everybody making a recommendation back to you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this BOLI meeting of your Board of Trustees. BOLI stands for Board of Local Improvements. Calling the meeting to order, please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So your Village Board of Trustees comprises the Board of Local Improvements, or BOLI. The BOLI is tasked with overseeing public improvements at the Timber Trails development. The money to pay for these public improvements is drawn from a fund established through a line of credit from the developer and from the sale of special assessment bonds. The village engineer oversees construction draw requests and all requests, as does the board's finance committee, before consideration by this full board. The most recent draw request is dated July 18th, 2019. Having reviewed the minutes in your packets, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 22nd, 2018?
Do we need a roll call first?
Oh, thank you, Jim. Yes, please, may we have the roll call?
Certainly, Madam President. Trustee Chen is absent. Trustee Fink.
Here.
Trustee John.
Here.
Trustee Rudolph.
Here.
Trustee Sifferman.
Here.
And Trustee Terrell.
Here.
All present except for Trustee Chen.
Thank you, Clerk Horvath. Now may I have that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Any discussion or comment on the minutes? If not, all in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, those motions are approved as written. Moving on to agenda item number 5 on the BOLI of Trustee Rudolph.
Thank you, President Gallagher. I'm going to make a motion to approve disbursement request known as number 84, which represents the 84th draw on the special assessment bonds issued for the Timber Trails project. The amount is $111,000, $111,115.53, and these are all for administrative, non-capital items. I make a motion to approve this disbursement request.
Is it 111,100 or 915?
I'm sorry, my own writing mistake. Let me correct that. $111,915.53. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Rudolph. Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Any discussion? Clerk Horvath, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Chen absent. Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee John.
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph.
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman.
Aye.
And Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. There being no other business before the Board of Local Improvements, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd make that motion to adjourn tonight's meeting of the BOLI.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, we stand adjourned. Moving on to the regular Village Board of Trustee meeting. Clerk Horvath, will you please confirm that everyone is still here?
I so do.
Thank you. Having read the agenda, are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, I'll move on to the next item, which on our agenda is citizen comments, but I would like to delay citizen comments until after we hear an update on well number 3 and the repairs. Our superintendent of the water department is here to give that report, Aaron Duffy. Thank you. I think it's automatically on.
Okay. I can go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with the events that led up to us pulling the well, what we found when we did so, and where we are at now. So at about 11:30 p.m. on July 31st, the water plant operators and myself received a call-out alarm that well 3 failed to run. At that time, the water operator on call arrived to the well house to find that there was no power from the power source. So he called ComEd, and they investigated the issue and found that there were no issues with the actual source of the power. So they investigated further and found that there was a blown fuse. Upon replacing the fuse, they proceeded to start the pump again, and it blew another fuse. So they delayed any further investigation that evening, and we called an electrician that arrived first thing on the morning of August 1st. The electrician went ahead and megged the motor both from the power, the pump starter, and the junction box. At both locations, all 3 phases megged 0, meaning that there was no power getting to the motor.
So megged means just measuring the power, the ampere?
Megged means measuring the actual insulation, so of both the cable and the motor.
Okay,
So megging 0 means that there was no power getting there based on the insulation of either the cable or the motor.
thank you.
So at that time, we decided that we needed to go ahead and call a well company because the issue was not above ground, it was below ground. So we proceeded the next day to begin pulling the well. Took approximately 3 working days to pull the well and get the pump and motor to the surface. When we got the pump and motor to the surface, as you will see in the picture on the screen, we found a charred remnants of the connection from the submersible cable to the pigtail, which connects the motor to the submersible cable. At that time, they went ahead and cut those leads and megged the motor, and the motor megged out excellent. So there wasn't an issue with the insulation on the motor. The issue stopped at the submersible cable. At that time, they went ahead and took the motor, the cable, and the pump back to their shop and inspected all 3. It was decided that the motor needed just basic routine maintenance, including an oil change. The pump had a few other issues that needed to be addressed, and then the cable, both the pigtail, which connects to the motor, and the submersible cable both needed to be replaced. We are currently finished with the repairs to the motor, or the routine maintenance to the motor. We are working on the repairs necessary for the pump, and it's just good practice to do any repairs to pipe so that we don't have any issues with that either. We're looking at approximately 4 more working days to finish repairs. At that time, they will mobilize again and begin putting the motor, pump, and column pipe back into the well. That will take approximately 3 to 4 days, upon which we will start pumping to the surface. We have to pump for about 24 hours before we can take our first back T test. We're required by the IEPA to get two negative back T tests 24 hours apart. In the past, that's taken 3 to 7 days. We're hoping that with some of the treatment that we're actually going to do to the well casing, well shaft, and below ground will help mitigate that and bring it down closer to 3 days, but we're not sure.
Can we work over the weekends to get the apparatus back down?
So we have requested that,
Okay.
and they do their scheduling on Fridays. So on Friday, I will find out if they will be able to work on Saturday or any extended hours thereafter.
Okay. And they realize what a priority this is for us, so
Yes, they do.
hopefully they'll be able to accommodate us. Okay.
That still sounds about 12 days,
weeks.
to, 12
Yeah.
to 14,
From
from standing here tonight.
Probably,
I'd rather be conservative, so,
yeah.
okay.
Okay. But so far, everything is, once we've identified the problem, everything is moving along as far as fixing it. We've had no other issues, no
Had
other
no
glitches. Okay.
So of course, we all wonder why this happened to the cable. Not that there's a great answer for it,
Right.
but
I don't have an answer for that. I'm not sure why this happened. Obviously, the well company is not going to make any assumptions or hypotheses, so
Will they be able to tell us at a later date what happened to it?
they will do a final report and they will provide all of the details from what they have found. But again, they won't make any assumptions.
when was the maintenance was last performed on this well, when?
In 2017, the well was pulled due to an electrical accident that we had above ground.
Right, right. So it seems unusual that it would
Yes.
happen again, right? I mean, for us sitting here, everybody who's been working so hard on it, I know it must be really frustrating that this happened, but also to the residents, that it's just 2 years and it's
Right.
another issue, right? It's hard to explain.
Right.
But there's a difference between the two incidents. This was a cable, and this was before I got on the board. What was it, in 2017?
In 2017, there was an electrical accident above the surface that caused us to pull the well to make sure that it did not affect anything below ground.
The life expectancies on these cables, do they last for a long time, or they?
I can't answer that. I know that based on my research, it can be anywhere from 15 to 20 years. But again, there can always be exceptions to the rule.
So is this a breach of this pigtail or this wire in the center of this picture? Looks like it's either cut or ruptured, or something would have caused that to snap, or it wasn't entirely severed. It would seem, it looks as though it's down to the core of the wire. Is there anything else down there that
Not that we found.
rock or?
We actually televised the well as well, and nothing was found except for iron buildup on the casing and well shaft,
Which is normal, right?
which is normal,
Yeah.
yeah.
As Superintendent Duffy said, we will receive a report, and then we will take it from there. So at this time, our number one priority is to get everything corrected and get the well back.
Right. I mean, it's very unfortunate that this happened, but as long as it happened, I'm glad we're looking at all the parts and making sure that everything is tip-top before we put it back in, so that this doesn't happen again in 2 years. So, thank you. Any other questions of Superintendent Duffy?
I have a quick question. Can you speak of the implications when well 5 is up and running? Will this be less of an issue for people?
So when well 5 is up and running, the hope is that the consistency of water quality would not be affected like it is now when we're using
But because our plans for one, shallow well number 1 are to,
Abandon.
we'll abandon it once well number 5 is done. So we won't be using the shallow well in the future. But of course, we hope we don't have these kind of problems, but if we do, we will, hopefully it's the last time we're gonna need well number 1.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, well 5 builds redundancy into the system so that we won't need that
Right.
well 1.
We're gonna close well number 1?
Yes.
Sand it in.
There is an entire process for abandoning the well. The IEPA has
Okay.
certain standards on that.
And we're still how many months out on number 5?
Spring.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Superintendent Duffy. Appreciate it. We'll now return to citizen comments. This is the portion of the meeting where we open it up to the public to address the board. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak to the board tonight limit their comments to 3 minutes so that everyone has an opportunity to speak that wishes to do so. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Yes, please, come on up. Good evening.
Okay, Bev Moon, 4059 Wolf Road, and it's about the water, so I'm glad that Erin came up here first of all.
Yes.
It was August 11th when my daughter came and tested the water. She has a TDS meter, and she says, oh, Mom, she says, you've got to call the village. It was 565 ppm. So the next day I called the village, and I left a message for Erin. She called me right back, and I told her she sent somebody out, and the village's fellow that came out, his meter was 671. According to the EPA, that marginally accepted ppm should be 200 to 300. Okay, now, when they took my water, when the village gentleman took my water, he said it was gonna be tested. I haven't heard anything back. And then that's disturbing to me.
Right.
So I don't know. But I did have some grass seed that I was watering, and it happened to get my flowers. That's what the water did to my flowers. I can't imagine what it's doing to us taking a shower. I don't use bottled water to take a shower.
Mhm.
We've been drinking bottled water, and I find it alarming that, no vouchers have been out for water, Mariano's Target, that kind of thing. And I think there should be.
Mm.
And Erin, I did leave a couple messages for Erin. I know one today, or maybe even 2 today, and I haven't heard back. And I've heard this from other village people too, and I could just imagine how many calls she must be getting. Okay, so it's like, why didn't people jump in to help her take care of these calls? I'm assuming you have a zillion calls, right? Okay, I'm sure of it. So, and then I called on Friday, and they're gone at noon. It's like, if I had this problem, and my flowers are turning black from being watered, I had to buy bottled water. I don't see the village really being that concerned. They're doing what they need to do, and it's unfortunate. They have nothing to do with the well misfunctioning like that. I understand that. It's the service recovery and what to do for the people in the meantime.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments and your concern, and we'll look into it. Erin, did you want to address that at all?
So we actually sent your sample out to a third-party lab. It takes approximately 7 to 10 business days to get those results back. As far as the high TDS, TDS carries a secondary maximum contaminant level, which mainly focuses on aesthetics, meaning odor, taste, and actual appearance of the water. It is not enforced by the IEPA. So even though the reading or result comes back above that secondary maximum contaminant level, it's not something that is considered to affect a person's health.
Really? Because I read somewhere that they said, if you're taking a shower, or kids take baths, don't get it in your eyes, don't get it in your mouth. I mean, that sounds pretty severe.
I can actually send you the link from the EPA that goes over secondary maximum contaminant levels.
Well, I would like it. I would also like my report.
Okay, and I will get it to you once we receive it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening?
Just for a second, Erin, could you tell us what TDS means?
Total dissolved solids.
Good point. Anyone else this evening who'd like to address the board? Hearing none, we'll move on to our other presentations. Thank you very much, Superintendent Duffy, for your report. Tonight, we have a presentation by Brian Lefevre from Sikich. He's our independent auditor, and he has a report on the 2018 CAFR Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Good evening, Brian.
Good evening. On behalf of Sikich, I'd like to thank the President and members of the board for inviting us to present the report resulting from the audit of the village for year ended December 31st, 2018. I did prepare a few comments for you on the comprehensive annual financial report, and I'd be happy to go through that with you and address any questions that you might have. We did meet with the Finance Committee, was that last month or earlier this month?
Last month.
So it was last month, and reviewed the report in detail, but happy to go through any questions that you'll have. So the comprehensive annual financial report consists of 3 sections: an introductory section, a financial section, and a statistical section. What's required under Illinois compiled statutes for an audit in the state of Illinois is the information contained in the financial section. What makes it a comprehensive annual financial report then is the introductory and statistical section. So within the introductory section, on Roman numeral 8, you will find an award that the village received for its comprehensive annual financial report, or CAFR, last year. And this is from the Government Finance Officers Association. It's the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And this was the 24th consecutive year that the village received this award. It's the highest level of financial reporting within the local government industry. You should all be commended for that. When your bond rating comes up, either through new bond issues or if the rating is being reviewed, this is kind of something that when they look at this, they understand that they're getting consistent financial information, so that it makes their job simpler, one, but two, it's kind of one of those things that can kind of push you, over the top on a rating, if something should be close that way. Within the financial section, the first document you come to is on Sikich's letterhead. It's page 1. It's the Independent Auditor's Report. This is where we give our opinion on the financial statements. In order for us to give an opinion on the financial statements, we're required to follow 2 sets of standards. The auditing standards are issued by the AICPA. That tells us the types of procedures we need to perform when we're conducting our audit. And then the financial reporting standards are issued by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, or GASB. And those tells us what the statements and the notes to the statements, including even the statistical section, are all governed by GASB. So once we follow those 2 sets of standards, we can then give an opinion on the financial statements. We're pleased to present an unmodified opinion. And what that means is that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, free of material misstatement. It's what's referred to as a clean audit opinion. And it's the highest level of opinion that we can receive on the financial statements. Now, one thing you'll notice on the second page of the opinion is that there's the 3rd paragraph. It's titled Change in Accounting Principle. So GASB issues the standards, right? So they have timelines when these new standards need to be implemented. So the village had a required implementation of GASB Statement 75. It relates to what GASB calls other post-employment benefits. For all of us, that means retiree health insurance. So when someone retires under IMRF, police pension, or fire pension, the statutes of the state of Illinois require that you as the employer are required to allow those folks to stay in the village's insurance plan after they retire at no cost to the village, meaning you get to charge them 100% of the premium. You do, however, have one, what's referred to as a PSEBA benefit, Public Safety Employee Benefit Act, where you have one duty disability in your police department, whereby that insurance is paid for by the village. And that's what triggers the liability on the financial statements.
I see.
In terms of the magnitude of the liability, if you will. Now, that liability isn't something that you set up in a trust and pay down, but rather it's part of the annual budget cycle. It's different than how the police pension and fire pension are funded, where you have assets that are being set aside for individuals retiring in the future. You don't do that, generally speaking, for an OPEB liability. But it is confusing when all of a sudden that liability pops up for the first time in the financials, and that was a change that GASB made, because before it was just a disclosure in the notes financial statements, and it was just kind of a pay-as-you-go liability. Now they want that liability recorded, no different than we record the net pension liability for IMRF and the police and fire pension plans. So the dollar amount of the liability was $1.4 million that went under the financial statements for the first time.
Okay.
I'll show you where that appears when we get to the statements. So just past the independent auditor's report, you come to a document that's called the Management's Discussion and Analysis. This is the executive summary of this document. So it's a lengthy document, right? So if you're going to be reading this document, this is where you start. This is where you want to refer your constituents if they want to know about the financial position of the village. This is where they would look. And I believe that the comprehensive annual financial report, if it hasn't already been posted to your website, will be posted to your website. So the management discussion analysis is where you get to explain, as the village, the whys of the financial statements, the changes between 2017 and 2018. Does a very good job of comparing that. It's a 15-page document. And then after that document, you come to the statement of net position, which is on regular page number 4 and 5. The statement of net position is what I like to refer to as a global view financial statement. If you take all of the funds that you budget and appropriate for, and you consolidate them all into one financial statement with the capital assets of the village and the long-term liabilities of the village, you have the statement of net position. Your business type activities are your water and sewer fund and your parking fund, and then everything else falls into your governmental activities. So during the year, there was another unique transaction that I would point out to you, because the accounting for that transaction is rather unique as well. You might recall that the voters approved a referendum for the library, for the improvements that were made at the library. And in order to do that, under Illinois compiled statutes, the municipal library cannot issue debt in its own name. Rather, the village has to issue that debt on behalf of the village, or excuse me, on behalf of the library. Because the debt is in the village's name, that liability is recorded on the village's financial statements, but it's offset by an asset due from other governments, due from the library. So on pages 4 and 5, in the due from other governments of $2,248,000 is included a $1,925,000 receivable from the library, because that's essentially the property taxes that are coming from the taxpayers, comes into the library pays the bonds. On the financial statements, because they're in the village's name, we had to treat it as if the library gave you the money and then you gave the money to the bondholders. So in the long-term liabilities on page 5, it includes that liability. Like I said, it's a net zero on your financial statements due to that asset being recorded. One other thing to point out to you on page 5, so under non-current liabilities, I mentioned that the net pension liability for police, fire, and IMRF is all recorded as liabilities, along with that OPEB liability. Those liabilities, between all those liabilities, it totals about $15 million, $16 million. That in and of itself causes your overall net position to be a negative number. The rating agencies understand that, and they look to see how are you funding those liabilities. Are you funding what the actuary recommended? They're not looking at just and saying, oh, that's a negative number, that has a negative impact. That's not how they look at things. So they look at things like your fund balance policy for your general fund, and then how you fund those pension liabilities. And we'll look at that here on the statements. So page 13 is where you find the answer for the information related to your general fund. So your general fund ended with a fund balance of $4.2 million. Your policy goal for fund balance reserves in the general fund is 30%. You're actually at 41%. And you manage that through the budget process. You also manage that how you handle your transfers over to your special purpose reserve fund as well. So that was in a good position. As to the pension liabilities, I think it's important just to take a minute or two just to show you where the information is related to your pension liabilities. So beginning on page 81, so there's 3 pension plans, right? So the sworn officers are in the police pension plan. There's no active employees in the fire pension plan, but you do have beneficiaries. And then all the other full-time employees would be in the IMRF plan. So they're funded differently, right? So IMRF given an employer contribution rate each year that's determined based by the actuaries at IMRF that says, here's how much the Village of Western Springs has to contribute of covered payroll each and every month for the fiscal year, and then it changes every year. 4.5% comes out of the employee's checks, and then the village pays that employer contribution rate. So that rate for 2018, as you see on page 81, was just 12.36%. The budgetary impact was $373,000. So each and every year, you're putting in exactly what's required under that statutory provision. So it's a very well-funded plan because of that. Police and fire works a little differently. Your actuary determines what the dollar amount is that they recommend that you contribute, and then you adopt a tax levy to fund that. The dollars from the tax levy may come in, they're not gonna come in exactly at what was levied. They put in a loss of costs, those types of things. When you look at pages 82 and 83, you can see that you're funding at or more than what the actuary determined that contribution to be for police and fire. And so you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing to fund police and fire. And that's how the rating agencies look at that as well. That's one piece. Are we putting in the amounts that we should be putting in? And the other piece is, let's look at the financial statements for those plans to see how it's doing compared to that liability that the actuary is recommending that you fund towards. And you're trying to fund towards fully funding the liability by 2040. So your IMRF plan, the data that was here was through December 31st, 17. The liability is split between the village's financial statements and the libraries, because the library participates as part of the same plan. As of 12/31/17, the IMRF plan was 96.6% funded, so very well-funded plan. Your police pension liability, which you'd see on page 85, was 50.2% funded. Now this is based on straight market value. What happened at the end of 2018? The markets collapsed in December of 2018. So if we draw a line in the sand, December 31st, 2018 was not a good year to have a fiscal year on when you're measuring assets in a pension plan. But those assets have come back and then some since December 31st. So just on a straight market value, 50.2% funded. We did discuss also at the Finance Committee, that's important for y'all to understand. You don't fund based on market value of the plan. You fund based on a smooth 5 years. So in other words, that's to say then that one bad year in the markets is not going to cause all of a sudden your funding requirement to have a dramatic increase. If you fund it based on market value, this will be your funding pattern. You're trying to get a smooth funding for your pension plans. The fire pension plan, then information's on page 86. That's 86.1% funded. Obviously, there's just a beneficiary there with no active employees. The last piece of information I would point out to you is on page 87, which is the investment returns for the police pension plan over the last 5 years. So the actuary is assuming a 6.75% rate of return. So you can see over the last 5 years, in 2017, significantly over that assumption. In the other years, you've been below that assumption, which is consistent with what we see at other places. But it is an evaluation that you should continually work on with your actuary and the investment manager of the plan, because what they're supposed to be using on that assumption is a long-term expected rate of return for those assets in the long term, which means on the long term, you would expect to beat that assumption half the time and not beat that assumption half the time. As you build more data, your investment manager should have significant impact into those discussions with both the village board and the police pension board, along with input from that investment manager as well. So I know we went into a little more detail this year, but pensions are very, very important to the village of Western Springs and to all of our clients. I want to make sure that we covered that as well. From a production standpoint and timing standpoint, the audit went very smoothly. You should all be very proud of the staff that you have. They work very hard. They're very professional. Grace, leads the audit, but also all of the departments are involved in that audit. You have the information. It's the culmination of the whole year. So just want to make sure that you all were aware that it goes smoothly and that you have the answer
Thank you. I did want to clarify too that one of the, you did mention about the library and how we're kind of a pass-through for that, but I wanted to mention for the trustees that that amount came up in multiple spots in the report. And one that I wanted to clarify was the one where it showed that one of our funds had expenses in excess of what was budgeted. But that is actually because of, that's the mechanism where the
Yes,
library.
very good point.
Okay,
Bring that up, yep.
so, because when you back out that amount from the library, that fund actually did not have a deficit.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct, very good point.
thank you. Anybody have any questions of Brian? No, all right, well, thank you. That was a
Thank you very
very
much.
thorough report, appreciate it. And of course, appreciate our department, our finance department, and congratulations on the 24th successive certification for open, it's for open accounting, for transparency in accounting,
Yep, the Certificate of Achievement.
Yes.
Excellence in financial reporting, yep.
excellence in financial reporting. Kudos to the financial department on that. And thank you very much for your
You're
time.
welcome.
Okay, moving on, we also have a presentation on small cells. Small cells legislation was passed in Springfield earlier this year, and we're fortunate to have Michael Mars of Kleinthorpe and Jenkins here to give us some information on what we can expect and what we can and cannot do with regard to that legislation. Welcome, Mr. Mars.
Thank you. So, yeah, small cell is one of the hot button issues for municipalities currently, and is going to be maybe more so going forward as these start to be deployed by telecommunication providers. And so what I wanted to do today, as was mentioned, you passed a new chapter of your village code last year to address the state legislation that had been approved on this subject. And every town kind of did that in anticipation of the rollout of 5G, which is now coming. And so we are at the point now where the telecommunication providers are going to be coming to you wanting to deploy these small cells. So it's important that we take the kind of the final steps in the process so that you're fully prepared for when that happens. So it seemed like a good time for me to come and just give you a quick overview, refresher on what small cell is, how this legislation came to be, what it says and what we can and can't do as a municipality, and how we're going to hopefully best control implementation of small cell facilities within the village. So first of all, what is a small cell? You're familiar with the traditional macro cell towers, the big 110, 150-foot cell towers that we always think of, that municipalities have been dealing with for 15 or 20 years. Small cell installations are different. They started in about 2012 as a way for the telecommunications providers to supplement their existing coverage. And they typically involve a antenna that's placed at the top of an existing structure, often a utility pole. At about 35 to 40 feet is where the providers like to have them. There's usually an equipment box further down the pole. Often these have been placed in the past on Commonwealth Edison poles, but the providers have recently been moving away from that in favor of municipal infrastructure or standalone poles that deal with this. So we have a few pictures here. The center one is kind of representative of what the telecommunication providers are doing more recently, which is kind of a tall pole with a cantenna at the top. It's called a cantenna. That cylinder that you see has the antenna inside. And because this is typically a new pole, it's got the wiring and equipment inside the base, and so you're not seeing exposed wires running up and down like you might with a convent installation. And then the one on the right you'll see has a similar antenna on top of an existing street light that also supports a traffic arm mast. And in that case, they have a equipment box at ground level, although the providers have recently been moving away from that. And as the technology gets smaller, they're able to put smaller equipment boxes right on the pole so they don't look as obtrusive. So the impetus for the state legislation and why we're talking about this now is 5G. You may have seen or started to hear ads for 5G ready phones. And you know, I just wanted to try to give you a little bit of information. I'm not great with the technical aspects of this, but I found this nice graphic that kind of details the history of these networks. So if you have, especially, I know I have an Android phone, and up next to the bars, you'll see a little 4G, which tells you what network you're currently on. And going back in history here, you'll see 2G back in 1991 with that picture of that BlackBerry-style phone that was able to support texting for the first time. Then in 1998, we went to 3G. Telecommunication providers created this network that had texting and internet service availability. And then in 2008, we had the 4G network that we're still on today. Unless you're out in rural areas, you're most likely in a 4G area. And that added kind of the streaming video, so people are actually able to easily watch the YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff on their phone. So 5G is the next step in that process. And the telecommunication providers are very excited about it. And it's going to be able to support all those existing functions as well as things like 3D, super high definition video, 3D video imaging, and importantly, smart home functions. So increasingly, we have all this wireless technology in our homes. You may have a Nest thermostat. You're able to control it from your phone. You can unlock your car from your phone. You have smart refrigerators and smart washers and dryers. And I was even at someone's house, and they had a smart meat thermometer. So the meat thermometer is in with the meat, and they're able to monitor the internal temperature on their phone. So there's more and more of that, which is push the existing technology to its limits, and 5G will be able to handle all that and more, including, importantly, they're building it out so that it'll be able to handle driverless car networks in the future and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of excitement about it, and so we have to keep in mind, despite all the bad stuff I'm going to tell you in a minute about its impacts on municipalities, that the residents and businesses are going to want this technology as it starts coming online in the next year. So in terms of how we got to the point of having this legislation, telecommunications providers have traditionally dealt with, they always view municipalities and local governments as obstructionists. They see them as getting in the way of what they want to do. So they've traditionally dealt with that at the federal level, but when it came to rolling out 5G, the providers, your Verizons, your AT&Ts, T-Mobile, Sprint, got together and took a different tact where they came up with a template bill and introduced it in the 50 states that allowed it, that their plan is to roll out 5G using small cells. So there's not going to be more big towers. There's just going to be a lot more of these small cell installations. And in order to be effective in rolling out this network, they introduced this legislation that allows them to that makes these permitted uses in a number of areas, so we can't put them in most cases through zoning processes. And importantly, they allow them to place them on municipal infrastructure with little ability of municipalities to say no, or to say we want that somewhere else, and also to put up new poles in the right of way, again, with the ability of municipalities to say no. So predictably, when this legislation came along, municipalities weren't real excited about it. It impacts our traditional zoning authority, and under federal law, federal regulations had always protected our proprietary rights over our own municipal infrastructure, and that's proposing to take that away. And it even impacted our existing contracts. So in a number of cases, municipalities had entered into agreements with Verizon or anybody else as to how small cell deployments might happen. And the legislation said, well, those are no good. Now we have to apply the act, even though those were negotiated in good faith and sometimes go out a number of years. Okay? So the legislation was initially, there was a lot of goings on at the General Assembly, as there often is over controversial subjects. The IML got involved, negotiated some changes with the telecommunication providers. But the problem is, because they were rolling this out in all 50 states had limited ability to give in Illinois without other states pointing and saying, well, you gotta give us the same thing. So there was only so far they were willing to go, at which point IML kind of stepped out of the process and said, you know, we've gotten as far as we can. You know, municipalities, you can take it from here. Some of you may be in favor of this, some of you may be against it. Most people were against it at that point, and continued to lobby people against this. DuPage Mayors and Managers was very active, Northwest Municipal Conference, City of Aurora, and the Chiefs of Police were some of the chief groups that were kind of opposing this. So initially it was defeated, languished for about 6 months, and then the telecommunications companies reached out to a number of the opponents and said, we'd like to sit down and talk over some changes. And that resulted in about 25 hours of face-to-face negotiations and telephonic negotiations. I had the opportunity to be part of that on behalf of the City of Aurora. It was an interesting process, and we did get some good things in the law, some protection for historic landmarks and districts, increases in fees, longer timelines, all those sorts of things. But it started from such a bad place that it you know, even with those changes, most people felt they couldn't support it. But the chiefs of police got a number of changes relative to security technology and telecommunications and felt comfortable going neutral. Some of the other former opponents went neutral, and that swung enough legislators that this was passed. Okay, so then we're left with, well, what do we do about it now? And so we just have had to deal with the fact that this is here now and do the best we can. Some of the things that are in here in the act, and there's FCC regulations that came out subsequently that have some minor impacts on this, but the state law is the main thing that we're concerned about. Zoning, in terms of zoning, no zoning review is allowed if the small cell facility is located anywhere within a right-of-way, parkways, and even ComEd right-of-ways sometimes that run along backs of lots. And outside of the right-of-way on properties owned exclusively for commercial or industrial use, which in your case is the C2, the O, and the ORI district. So if it's a mixed-use district, we're able to have it as a special use, but if it's not, there's no residential component to your district, then it is a permitted use. And like I said, these attachments, it allows them to attach to municipal infrastructure or put up new poles if the providers desire. And so some of the regulations that that are contained in the act and have subsequently been incorporated into your chapter are a permitting process, an application form that we've provided a template to staff that will be modified for telecommunication providers to come here that contains all the information that you want to know as a village when somebody comes with a small cell applications. There's time limits in the act. We have 30 days to initially review a permit and determine whether it's complete, 90 days to answer and provide a permit decision if it's co-location of an existing structure, and 120 days if it's a new pole. There is a remedy where it's deemed approved if we don't meet those timelines, if they take certain steps. And again, it limits our ability to say no. So if we can't identify another structure within 100 feet that we say, you know, we'd rather have it on there and it's not going to cost them anymore, they don't have to do that. There's height limitations in the act and in your ordinance. 45 feet is generally the max that we're looking at here, because 35 to 40 feet is kind of their sweet spot for putting these in terms of effectiveness. The regulations make sure that these won't interfere with public safety technology. Some other things that we can do, and importantly, and what we're going to be talking about more as you go through this meeting and others, is reasonable design standards. So they did leave us some aesthetic control over these, and so we have kind of some proposed design standards that we've given to staff. Staff has made some comments, and we're going to work through those with them. But we want to have design standards approved by the board that we can then give to telecommunication providers that say this, if you want to go on our existing streetlights, how do we want these to look? If you want to go on our existing electric utility poles in town, how do we want them to look? If they're putting up a new pole, how do we want those to look? We want to be able to control as much of that as we can for aesthetic purposes. Some special protections for historic districts and landmarks. And we also have some control where ground-mounted equipment goes. We can have spacing requirements so that we're not filling up the whole parkway with ground-mounted equipment, although, as I said, they've kind of moved away from that. And then real quick, there's certain application fees that are in the act that vary by what they're asking for, and those are capped, and we've put them in your code at these maximums as allowed by state law. And then there's agreements. So if they attach to our existing infrastructure, we're able to charge them $200 a year. That's very low compared to what people were getting. The typical price before was $200 to $300 a month for these small cell things, but the industry said to everyone, we can't effectively roll out this many poles at those prices, so we need a cap. They originally proposed $20 a month, or $20 a year, excuse me. And now it is up to $200 in the final legislation. And we also have the ability to enter in your ordinance and the state law, contemplate these master license agreements with each provider. The site-specific permits are issued underneath those master license agreements, and those agreements will cover things like abandonment, what happens if a pole gets knocked over, how the electricity is provided, a lot more detail than we're able to build into the ordinance. And so we have a form that we're going to propose to the different telecommunication providers for that as well. So there'll be one master license agreement with each of the four major providers, or maybe three after T-Mobile and Sprint end up merging. Like I said, there'll be a cap on an annual fee that's also reflected in there. And so we want to regulate just to make sure we're getting the best that we can. There's a picture on the right here of a particularly egregious one that if you don't put in regulations, you can end up with nonsense like that. And we just want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So in terms of next steps, as I mentioned, you previously approved your ordinance. We have draft design standards that, as I said, staff has made comments on. We're going to work through those with them, and you should see those back hopefully next month. The application form needs to be finalized. These pole attachment agreements need to be finalized and approved by the board. And then we are in good shape and prepared for 5G to arrive in Hinsdale. So we're starting to see
Western Springs.
I'm sorry, Western Springs. We're starting to. I work a lot with Hinsdale. So we're starting to see the providers coming around and getting ready to roll these out. So we want to be as prepared as we can.
Do we need
Happy
to?
answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for their presentation. Do we need to amend our zoning ordinance to?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I forgot to mention, you need to amend your zoning ordinance. As I said, these are permitted uses in many places, but we want to, in the districts that they're not, specify that they're special uses. Although that's already reflected in your village code, we want to make those same changes in the zoning code. And just, we have to tweak some definitions and stuff. So they're not hugely significant changes, but we do have to make a few changes.
So essentially, we can't say no.
You can't say no.
Can we restrict, you said up to 45 feet, can we say up to 35 feet?
Nope.
Okay.
Can we attach a modest application fee?
So the application fees are,
Well,
these are the application.
well, that's, I'm talking about a separate application fee, not
Like a
fees
permit
to
fee.
operate.
Right.
But just the application.
$200 is the operation, $200 a year is the operation fee. These are the application fees. And, in some cases, when these are going out for engineering, outside engineering reviews, it may not cover it, and that was a big issue in the negotiations. But, this is as high as the the negotiations, we're able to get them, and what the legislature ultimately approved is the maximum. So if somebody comes in with an application to put one on an existing utility pole, the application fee is $650. And then once it's on, that $200 a year fee.
Got it, okay.
So an
Okay.
application with 10 poles will be $3,500 under the middle scenario, right?
Correct, yeah, so they have the ability to bundle these applications for 2 to 25, as long as they're similar technology and similar. I'm sorry. Yeah, they have the ability to bundle these from two sites to 25 in a single bundle, in which case it goes to that $350 each.
Can multiple providers put their boxes on the same pole?
Conceivably, they could, but they don't want to. And so they are most likely not going to.
Does I heard that it
can't
interferes
make
with
them.
radio, we can't make them. Are they restricted into, if one provider puts a pole here, can we say you can't put a pole 100 feet from there?
Is the provider, the provider allowed to advertise on that pole that they have secured?
No, I think we have in the act some restrictions on signage, and so they could not do the advertising.
There's something about a 4-inch by 6-inch label with a phone number.
Yeah, and I saw that staff had thought that was kind of big and
Okay.
obtrusive, so we're gonna look at that. That's not dictated by the act, that's just.
Oh, okay.
You have some control, but we just want something on there that identifies who do we call. So we should have records at Village Hall as to
Right.
who owns each pole, each site. But we also just want us to easily, hey, this one fell over, and here's the phone number right on it, we call that number.
What type of control will we have with the logistics of where these go and how many there are? I mean, it's coming, we're stuck with it, we have to deal with it, but who decides how many and where?
Right, so each of the providers is out with engineering teams looking at what they're going to need in each community. So, it depends. So AT&T, what we've seen so far, AT&T has kind of a better infrastructure to begin with in a lot of communities and may not need as many poles as the other providers. And they already have a lot of fiber laid, et cetera, because these are all tied together with fiber as well. But providers are going to want these every 300 to 500 feet. And so what we'd like to see is they create a map as to where they're going to want them. And they come, and in the best case scenario, they're meeting with staff before they put in applications, walking around with staff, talking about these locations, so that staff can say, hey, this really isn't going to work from an aesthetic standpoint for this resident or whoever else, and we'd like you to put it here around the corner. And if that works for the telecommunications provider, they probably won't care. It's all the same to them. They do want them in locations where they can get to them. So when we talk about, for instance, comment right-of-ways down the back of lots, if they can't get a cherry picker somewhere very easily, they're not going to find that to be an attractive location because they need to do occasional maintenance and that kind of thing. We are in kind of a weird situation where we want to work cooperatively with the providers, but we also know that they have the upper hand, so we want to assert our advantages where we can. But hopefully, at least initially, we'll be able to work with them to get the best locations for everybody.
But there's 3 providers, 3 main ones? They could all come and put the same thing on us? They can't share poles, and so we could have multiple poles for...
Yes, there are going to be a lot of polls. And, I'm not sure the legislature quite imagined how obtrusive this is going to be when they passed it. So we'll see what happens. We were talking before the meeting that there's some federal legislation to try to scale back the ability of these local these telecommunication providers to tell the municipalities where they can go and try to create a more cooperative relationship, but that's just proposed legislation. So the telecommunications lobby is very powerful, and I'm not sure that's going to go.
Can you remind us who the sponsors of this bill were?
It was, let me see. Kelly Cassidy was a Democratic state rep. Terry Link from Lake County, Democrat from Lake County, was the Senate sponsor. And I believe Kelly Cassidy, House Democrat, was the chief House sponsor. And Terry was the Senate sponsor.
So there's 3 major providers. What about minor providers? Are they also allowed?
One of the things that we really tried to do in the negotiations is to try to prevent small companies from coming in and building these on spec, which we had seen in previous instances where they come in, they put in applications, put stuff up, and then try to lease it to the providers. So we were able to, because we had the major players at the table, say to the telecommunications providers, we don't want that to happen, and they didn't want it to happen either, because that puts them at a disadvantage. So we got language in there that says you're either a telecommunications provider or you have a contract, you're able to show us with a telecommunications provider that they're going to go on this as soon as it's up, that you're doing it on their behalf. So hopefully we haven't seen any small providers coming in trying to bypass that so far.
Michael, do you know of any municipalities that have them fully deployed already?
No, the technology, when they passed the act, the technology wasn't there yet. And now we're seeing test programs, we're seeing that they're going to be coming online later this year. So they are active in talking to everybody, but I don't think anybody's fully deployed at this point. But I know that in places like Aurora and Schaumburg, where there's a lot of people and a lot of proposed installations, they're kind of pushing. And Verizon, for instance, has given us among our clients, a list of their priorities. And, just so you guys know, those near western suburbs, you included are ones that are high on their list, so they're going to be coming soon.
What's to stop us from all 3 providers coming and just saying, this is what we're gonna do? What recourse do we have?
Not
Nothing.
very much. I mean, if they come and say, we're going to put up something schlocky and we don't care, we're going to use the design standards and our other code provisions to say that's not acceptable. This is Western Springs.
Right.
We don't feel that that's appropriate. And just say no.
But even if they're as pretty as the one example you had with the black pole with the antenna on the top of them, if there's 12 of these on every block, because 3 providers each,
Yep.
I mean, that'll be horrifically
Yeah,
anesthetic.
so like I said, they do have the ability to co-locate with each other, they just don't want to, but there's nothing to prevent you from asking or trying to work with staff to see. In fact, one of our clients was considering preemptively coming up with a pole design, putting it up and saying, we would like you, all 3 providers, to go on this set of poles that we've created.
Can we enforce it?
No, so that's the risk, you can't enforce it. So the design standards are our best tool. And so, it's not much, but at least it's something.
Right, okay.
Michael,
Well-
is there a chance that the legislation could change?
There was talk about trailer bills, but I think until there are until people start rolling out and people see how many
And until
poles
our
there are,
legislators
and
see
maybe
how
they
many
don't
polls
look,
go
right.
in, yes.
And their constituents start calling them and saying, have you seen what your vote of yes has done to our town? I don't see much change there.
But then it's too late.
Then it's too late. Well, one hope that I have is as I mentioned, that this technology keeps getting smaller, and I'm
maybe.
hoping at some point they'll figure out a way that they don't need this, right? Which is bad, because then we have all these poles everywhere that
Right.
need to come down. But
Right.
I think at the rate of change we've seen with this technology, that 10 years from now things will be significantly different.
And we showed that at a committee meeting. We had your PowerPoint that showed pictures of some of the antenna and the infrastructure from 6 months ago compared to what's in our materials now.
Right.
And the antennas now are like a third of the size of what they were 6 to 8 months
Yeah,
ago.
right. So I had some pictures of like ComEd pole installations, and we didn't want to bring those to you because that's really not what they look like anymore. With these kind of mini refrigerators on the side
Oh, sure. Our village engineer, Jeff Ziegler, has a question.
Mike, I would like to ask a question. I know that at one point in time, the cell providers were asked or required by the government to supply like alternative power sources and things for these related to disasters and things like that, where they had to be capable or something of having some kind of generator attached to these large cell towers and stuff like that for communications. Does that come into play here at all with any of these 5Gs? Are you familiar with any of that stuff?
No, I'm not aware of anything in the act that would require that kind of backup power source. I mean, they probably are motivated to make sure that their network stays up because they have unhappy customers in the event that there is something. We do have the ability to reserve space on our own poles for public safety technology and things like that, but there's no requirement of backup power service because that wouldn't affect anyone but their customers necessarily.
Right, it was originally designed for disaster purposes.
Oh, that's right, so yeah.
That legislation came through the Katrina, it came through after Katrina, and that's still in effect.
Right, and there was, I remember now, when we were talking with them, there is going to be a statewide public safety technology network that the contract's been awarded to AT&T to deploy that, but that's going to be separate from this network.
Okay.
Mike, can you just touch upon who's gonna own the poles?
Right, so you continue to own the pole if they put something on your pole. If they come in and put up a brand new pole, that is going to be theirs. But in some cases, communities are working with them to, hey, we would like a street light at this particular location that you're talking about. So let's go ahead and put up a new street light standard with the antenna on top, or we're kind of develop a design. So you can develop designs through staff that you propose to these guys. And they are working cooperatively with communities. And so in those cases, they may still own it, but if it has electricity and a street light on it, they're going to want to give it to you guys. And there is, we're kind of talking about that with different communities, but there makes some sense if it's your street light that you take ownership of it.
And that's part of the architectural standard, is to make sure, where we are downtown, we have, architectural light standards, they're gonna match that, and that's gonna be part of the requirement, right?
So I saw the small standards, which they're not gonna be interested in, because those are too small, we're not gonna try to slap a cap on those, but anything taller is going to appeal to them, and so, so in one
But
case.
color and design, they're gonna try to match whatever light standards we have in any particular neighborhood or district.
Right.
Even though they may be
So in one community
taller.
I'm working with, they have concrete staffs for the light poles with the mast arms on top. And Verizon came up with a design that involves pulling that out, putting up an aluminum pole with an applique they were able to develop with a third party that looks like the concrete. And then we take the existing mast arm and put it back on that. And so, that's a nice design because it's a hollow aluminum pole instead of concrete, so the wiring is all inside instead of running it up the side as it would be on if they just put it on top of the concrete pole. You've still got a light, it still approximates your, unless somebody's looking closely, hopefully they won't notice that it's not like the others necessarily. So there are options if you can develop a good working relationship with these providers to try to get something that you find acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good example of something where we might do something creative on our side to encourage something that's gonna be aesthetically more pleasing or more light in areas where we talked about having additional street light. That might be a
Or to
way.
get older lighting replaced.
Right.
If they're interested in the location and you were thinking of replacing that light anyways, hey.
Right.
let's do it.
Let's make lemonade out of
Yes.
lemons here.
Any other questions for Mr. Mars? Well, thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Helpful to understand, thank you.
think this will cover it. I don't think we're going to take any action tonight. Okay. You can probably cover whatever questions. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the consideration of agenda items during the workshop portion of our combined meeting. Agenda item number 1 is the report from the Properties and Recreation Committee. Trustee Terrell, is there any report since Trustee Chen is absent?
Not that I'm aware of, no report.
Okay. Then, moving on to item number 2, Public Works and Water. Trustee Fink?
Just a summary of the capital reports. The Ridgewood Oaks Detention Basin, there was a meeting on July 22nd with the Homeowners Association, and just to come finalize the costs, and there was a request to itemize a couple of the items, to break it out as two separate receipts almost, just for their Homeowners Association. So they're hoping to come back with a idea for a special service area in the October board meeting of how it's going to be funded. As far as the wells, that's the hot button topic of the day. So Western Springs requires 2 wells to meet our volume needs, and hopefully well 5 will do that for us. So well 5, the drilling has been ongoing and going as scheduled. So right now they're about 200 feet down with a goal of 1,500 feet. So this week they're going to start 24-hour drilling. So hopefully that will speed the process up a little bit. The other part of it, so once the well is complete, somehow they need to connect it to the reverse osmosis plant, and that's through the transmission, like they created, they did directional boring on the south side of Hillgrove. And so the well and the plant are on the north side, so they're gonna have to block down Hillgrove Avenue for a day just for the connections to be made. Standpipe by LT High School, that will be refinished. So they're doing some of the exterior work starting this week. And they're gonna work on draining it. A lot of it depends on well number 3, but hopefully at August 26th, they'll start draining it with an estimated completion date in October. But even when that's offline, it shouldn't affect people at all. The road improvement program, it is Clawson and Lawn Avenue. So Clawson is, the water main is completed or nearing completion, and they're gonna start on Lawn Avenue next. The Central Avenue reconstruction with the sewer separation. So the village engineer is currently in the process of completing phase 1 engineering. And the staff is currently trying to finalize an intergovernmental agreement with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. So again, hopefully in October they'll come with recommendations for that. The West Bourbon Mass Transit District, so that is the electrical vehicle charging station. So at the end of the month, they should be installing the charging station with the bike canopy coming in at the end of November. The sewer televising program, so this is a requirement by the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. So this year, it's gonna happen in the fall. They're gonna be looking at the sanitary and storm sewers of Commonwealth, North Springdale, and Fairview Estates, along with the combined sewers of Old Town North. The smoke testing program has been completed, and we're gonna get a final report from the group RJN that completed the test for us. And our last 2 things are just recommendations. So the how to use the motor fuel tax and the resurfacing project. So 3 bids were sent out, and we're recommending Lindahl Construction at a cost of $589,357.28.
Were they the low bidder?
They were the lowest bidder, yes.
Okay.
And the last proposal is the front door of the water tower. So right now, it wasn't a bid, it was more of a proposal because they wanted to get, they have an idea of preserving as much of this door as possible And so it's going to include reconstruction, replacement of the front doors, side lights, and the fan window. And so they were getting at just what's the best way to do it. And we received 2 proposals, and we're recommending the award to MC Building, not to exceed $28,585. Again, this is the lowest bid. And the nice thing with this, most of the donation, most of this money is going to come from donations that were just earmarked for the historic water tower.
Great. Is that it? Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about the resurfacing? What streets were gonna be covered by that?
MFT?
Yes.
They're listed in our packet. There's about 5 or 6.
Okay,
I don't
so
know
it's
offhand.
it's on that.
You have it, Jeff? Okay.
If it's in the packet, then the town people will know whether it's their streets or not.
Did you say MFT?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's 39th Street, Johnson to Franklin, Maple Street, Hampton to Forest, Grand Avenue, Maple to Chestnut, Johnson Avenue, 48th to the cul-de-sac, Howard Avenue, Carolyn to 52nd, and Dirks Drive, Harvey to Ellington. That's what we said.
Thank you, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to reiterate with regard to well number 5, that while we had hoped that it would be completed in early 2020, we now understand that that's going to happen late spring of 2020.
We are still looking at the schedule to see if we can get it done as soon as possible. So
Okay.
we can do.
Thank you.
We will have a full report next time.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, trustee Fink. Move,
Also,
Oh,
too,
sure.
sorry, I just had a question regarding yesterday's storms. Everything all back?
That is actually on my report.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, but just so you know, we did have damage to power lines on 47th Street between Lawn and Grand, where the poles actually came down, and they had to replace those. Power was restored to most of the village, however, the neighborhood adjacent to it only received it back around 11 o'clock last night. We also had power out throughout. We were very concerned about that, but it came back on most of the village around 2 o'clock or so. The winds probably were about 50 to 60 miles per hour, so we were hit hard.
I happened to be driving on 47th when that power pole
Oh, my
exploded.
gosh.
oh, geez.
It was quite a sight, and the line went right across the street and was live, and a woman next to me called 911, and we had somebody out right away. They had it blocked off very quickly, but it literally blew into 3 pieces, so it was pretty scary.
Yeah.
Hit a car, but the car kept going. I don't think the car knew that it hit it.
Oh, the lines.
But, yeah, I was glad that everybody was safe and that everybody was.
We don't know of any other damage.
Okay,
Received anything.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to planning and zoning, trustee John.
The first one is the Run for Kelly 2019, temporary use permit to allow a 5K on October 6th, I believe that is the date. Is that correct? On October 6th of 2019. The race is to occur, so it's the first time the race is actually on the streets. It is to occur near the South LT campus. And the O'Loughlin family is here. I don't know if you wanted to say anything, and
Sure. I have a map. I don't know if any.
We have a map
we
in our packets.
we do have it in our packets now.
Okay,
So
very good. So as you mentioned, this is the 8th year that we've had Run for Kelly, but before this year, it was always on LT South Campus. We ran it right on the cross-country course there. For the first time this year, we're asking to go through the streets of Springdale and take our run on the streets there. Before and after the run, all the activities are on LT South. That's where the parking is, all that kind of stuff. We have a certified course which should draw more runners to the event. Run for Kelly, I can just call it RFK for short, is our premier event every year. We have Lauren Petty from WMAQ Morning News. She's one of our announcers, and Ben Bradley from WGN. He's a 4 p.m. news anchor on WGN. Through events like Run for Kelly, we've given away 75 scholarships over the past 8 years with a total value of over $500,000. And we're very excited about that. That's how we fund Run for Kelly and a golf outing every year. is how we fund all these scholarships for future. And then I talked about, we also funded a cabin at Camp Tecumseh where Kelly went for 6 or 7 years. And on the new cabin, there'll be her picture and her story. But really that's about our run. I don't want to go on forever.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, and thank you for coming to the meeting tonight and explaining the entire run. We're looking forward, we're happy to be able to open up our streets for the run, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else on that?
And, nope, that is it for the Run for Kelly. The next agenda item is the temporary use permit for the Field Park 5K 2019. That's another fundraiser that is scheduled for September 14th of 2019. It's a 5K run walk and a 1 mile fun run for and kids dashes. And that is also going to take place on the streets of Western Springs near Field Park. So it's a temporary use permit that is being requested.
Yeah, I think that's on the omnibus, and this is probably, what, Marty, the 6th year that we're doing this, so, yeah. Almost a housekeeping item at this point.
So, and we'll add that to the omnibus for vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Finance Committee, Trustee Rudo.
Thank you, President Gallagher. Just a second, we're doing a little sharing of,
Pardon me?
oh, sorry, just a second.
What's wrong?
Okay. All right. Thank you. So first on our agenda, I just want to report that the pension board met on July 30th, and the update from that is just at that meeting, they updated the investment policy just a little bit. They just kind of fine-tuned it. It had been reviewed by legal, and it was, again, it was approved by the pension board on their July 30th meeting. And we'll have an update per usual on the pension fund at our next meeting when we're looking at all of our financials. The second item, and this will be on the omnibus, is the lease agreement with the Western Springs Service Club for the temporary parking, so for us to use their lot during the off-season. So we were pleased that the Planning Commission, as well as the village and the pool, have agreed to the terms. It's the agreement is for a $10,500 lease, again, to be using their parking lot, so their approximate 75 spaces during the season when the pool is closed. And the reason for this, of course, then, is to offset the loss of the spaces that will occur when the shoe fly construction begins and we lose the commuter parking spaces on the south side and far to the west of the tracks. So again, this will be on the omnibus for our vote tonight.
We'll get our money back?
Will we get our money back?
I don't,
No.
what about from the toll road? Okay, so it's not earmarked for it, but there's certainly enough with the underpass and, okay.
Right, part of the overall big package, right? The next item also for the omnibus tonight is the Finance Committee and Finance have recommended our daily parking meter rate be increased from $3 to $4 a day. That would be effective as of October 1st. The last time we increased this rate was 5 years ago in 2014. So I think, personally, I think it's a pretty reasonable rate. And again, recommending that that be approved tonight on the omnibus. Next is also on the omnibus is kind of a housekeeping budget amendment. This is one for Director Schramm, where he received a rebate for an equipment purchase, and we need to have a budget amendment pretty much to put that rebate back into the budget. So we like those kind of.
I am so happy to do that.
I know, we like those kind of budget amendments that go the opposite direction than what we usually get. So that is also, again, on the omnibus. And then the last item is just that the village is getting ready, is preparing for the issuance of our second tranche of the 2016 referendum bonds. This will be a $3.5 million issue. And the village is going to meet with Moody's Investor Service and Bond Counsel tomorrow, and the projected date of the sale is September 23rd. So that is just an FYI for everyone on that. And then last, I just want to reiterate and commend Director Turi and our finance team for, again, the terrific report, the CAFR, and just job well done. It's really great for our village to have you overseeing everything, and for your team, and just great job again. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for your leadership on that, Grace. And with that, no further report.
Thank you. Any questions of Trustee Rudolph? No, then we'll move on to agenda item number 5, Public Health and Safety Committee, Trustee Siverman.
Thank you, Madam President. The Public Health and Safety Committee met on August 13th and has advanced an item submitted by Chief Buds for our full board's consideration and approval. Contained in our meeting packet is his formal written request to purchase new e-ticketing software that identifies the technological enhancement that would eliminate the need for ticket books and the hand production of those tickets by police officers, which will result in long-term cost savings and time efficiencies. The proposed software upgrade would integrate with the department's existing records management system and interface very nicely with the clerk of the circuit court. The acquisition of this software through Tyler Technologies at a negotiated purchase price not to exceed $10,075 will satisfy one of the department's budgeted fiscal year 2019 goals, and as part of the village's capital improvement program. Tyler Technologies quote and draft agreement is included in your meeting packets, and the Public Health and Safety Committee recommends its approval at the upcoming omnibus vote.
We'll put that on the omnibus. Thank you.
Second item, Chief Buds has issued his annual back-to-school safety message reminding motorists and residents to take additional precautions around all Western Springs schools and routes leading to them, especially in this upcoming new school year beginning this week. His message is contained in your meeting packet and is posted on the department's Facebook and Twitter pages. This is a clarion call for all motorists to pay careful attention to all traffic signs, signals, pedestrian crosswalks, crossing guards, student safety patrols, and according to each school's traffic and parking plan. Particular attention is drawn to the state's laws prohibiting texting and the use of handheld devices, especially around school zones. The third item involves Chief Kenny's announcement of the details of the 125th year anniversary celebration of the Western Springs Fire Department, now known as the Western Springs Department of Fire and Emergency Services. His historical summary is included in our packets. Beginning in a rented barn, the early volunteers used $155 worth of equipment, firefighting equipment, to serve and protect Western Springs residents. Today, our staff includes 10 career and 43 paid on-call firefighters providing a variety of emergency medical services. This public celebration of the 125-year milestone is in Old Town North on Saturday, August 24th, beginning with a parade and ending with a picnic on the Tower Green around 2 p.m. A formal dinner is being organized for November 9th for past and present members of the fire department, village staff, and elected officials. Chief, anything to add to that?
No, I think you covered it very well. The rumor is not true that I've been here for all 125 years. But I couldn't be more proud of the department, and it's been a volunteer committee that's put all these events together. They've worked very hard, and the weather looked like it's going to cooperate, so we would encourage everybody to come out for nice picnic and a get-together. And again, appreciate all the support we're always given as a department. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sifferman. Moving on to the General Government Committee, Trustee Terrell.
You'll see on the agenda that we had considered a resolution adopting the written design standards for small wireless facilities, but after what you all heard tonight, it's going to be a much more complex procedure to go through and work this out. So we're going to remove that. It's something that we'll be working, I think, through my committee to hash this out, and we'll bring it to you later on down. Do we have any idea when?
I believe at the September board
Okay.
meeting. Yes.
Got a lot more work to do, which, judging from what I heard today, I'm interested to hear.
Yeah.
Moving on to B, the liquor license request. We discussed hash stacks, and it's a liquor application at the last meeting. And at that time, we agreed that it should move for the Liquor Commission to consider the Class B, Class G, Class H, and Class N licenses. We agreed it should move to the Liquor Commission. They overwhelmingly said that it was a very positive thing for the village. We'll be putting that on the omnibus tonight. And do we have a representative? Oh, did you want to address us in any manner, or since you waited here for an hour and a half?
Thank you.
Hashtags.
Thank you very much.
We are interested in hashtags, obviously.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Very excited to be part of the community. I'm both a resident here and looking forward to.
I'm sorry, I didn't, your name was, it's Dean George,
Yeah,
okay.
Dean George,
Okay.
sorry. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but I've been here twice before and very excited to be here and grateful for all the support.
Will you have vegetarian items?
Yes. And gluten-free will be open 7
Okay.
days a week. 6 to 3 is our proposed time for now. We'll be offering a full breakfast lunch menu along with pastries and coffee and some other things.
And what's your anticipated open date?
Middle
you
to
know-
end of September.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, we really are looking forward to you opening your doors, so welcome.
Very good,
and,
welcome.
Anything that we can do to help move it along, let us know.
I commend you and also our village staff for filling that spot so quickly. I was afraid that we'd have a vacancy right in the middle of the town, and the fact that you guys got this up and running by late September, I think is very commendable. And we'll be voting on it in the omnibus to give you those liquor licenses so you can get up and going.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Trustee Terrell?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, so we will be voting on liquor licenses, Class B, G, H, and N tonight on that. Okay, is there any other business? If not, we'll move on to the consideration of an action on agenda items during the special meeting portion of our combined meeting. The Illinois state statutes allow a municipality to collectively vote on a group of ordinances, resolutions, and other motions, such as awards of contract, appointments, etc. This is known as an omnibus vote. All the items contained on the omnibus vote list have been previously discussed by the President and Board of Trustees on at least one occasion, and often on several occasions. By placing them on the omnibus vote list, a single vote may be taken to approve them. A trustee may remove any item from the list and have it discussed and voted on separately prior to the omnibus vote. Is there any such request this evening? Hearing none, Trustee Terrell.
President Gallagher, I move that the following ordinances, resolutions, motions contained on the meeting agenda for August 19th, 2019 be adopted and/or approved under an omnibus vote. Agenda item number 7, approval of the meeting minutes of July 22nd, 2019 as read. Agenda item number 8, ordinance 19-2962, amending Title 7, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 3, Parking Regulations, Article A, Parking Meter Zones, Section 7-3A-4, Deposit of Coins or Currency, Fee and Time Limits of the Western Springs Municipal Code to increase the daily commuter parking space fee. Agenda item number 9, ordinance 19-2963, amending Title 4, Liquor Control of the Western Springs Municipal Code relative to the number of Class B full-service restaurant with a patron bar liquor licenses which can be issued in the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois. Applicant, Western Springs Breakfast LLC, doing business as Hash Stacks for the 909 Burlington Avenue property. Agenda item number 10, ordinance 192964, amending Title IV, Liquor Control of the Western Springs Municipal Code relative to the number of Class G fine wine, premium spirits, beer and gourmet food store, premium spirits, beer and wine only, liquor licenses which can be issued in the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois. Applicant, Western Springs Breakfast LLC, doing business as Hash Stacks for the 909 Burlington Avenue property. Agenda item number 11, ordinance 19-2965, amending Title IV, Liquor Control of the Western Springs Municipal Code relative to the number of Class H outdoor liquor cafe liquor licenses which can be issued in the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois. Applicant, Western Springs Breakfast LLC, doing business as Hash Stacks for the 909 Burlington Avenue property. Agenda item number 12, ordinance 19-2966, amending Title IV, Liquor Control, Chapter 1, Alcoholic Liquor, Section 4-1-10A, paren 14 of the Western Springs Village Code relative to the number of Class N caterer liquor licenses which can be issued in the Village of Western Springs, Cook County, Illinois. Applicant, Western Springs Breakfast LLC, doing business as Hash Stacks for the 909 Burlington Avenue property. Agenda item number 13, ordinance 19-2967, parking lot lease agreement with the Western Springs Service Club relating to the temporary use of a parking lot for commuter parking spaces. Agenda item number 14, motion to approve a temporary use permit for an outdoor liquor cafe, paren Western Springs Breakfast LLC, doing business as Hash Stacks at 909 Burlington Avenue, and paren. Agenda item number 15, motion to approve a license agreement for the temporary use of a public right-of-way relative to the operation of an outdoor liquor cafe, paren Western Springs Breakfast LLC, doing business as Hash Stacks at 909 Burlington Avenue, and paren. Agenda item number 16, motion to approve a temporary use permit, TUP, for the 2019 Run for Kelly 5K event. Agenda item number 17, motion to approve a license and release, hold harmless, and indemnification agreement for temporary use permit for the 2019 Run for Kelly 5K event. Agenda item number 18, motion to approve a temporary use permit, TUP, for the Field Park 5K Run Walk, 1 mile run, and Kids Dashes 2019 event. Agenda item number 19, motion to approve a license and release, hold harmless, for temporary use permit for the Field Park 5K Run Walk, 1 mile fun run, and Kids Dashes 2019 event. Agenda item number 20, motion to approve the purchase of a new e-ticketing software from sole source provider, Tyler Technologies of Yarmouth, Maine, in the amount of $10,075. Agenda item number 21, motion to award a contract for the 2019 MFT resurfacing project to the lowest qualified responsible bidder, Lindahl Brothers, Inc. of Bensonville, in the amount of $589,357.28. Agenda item number 22, motion to award a contract to MC Building of Darien, Illinois, for the 2019 Historic Front Door Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $28,585.00.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. This is what happens when you only have one meeting a month. So thank you very much. Clerk Horvath, may we have the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Trustee Zifferman.
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph.
Aye.
Trustee John.
Aye.
Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee Chen is absent. President Gallagher.
Aye. Thank you. Under other, we have agenda item number 23, which we will be tabling until a future date. Moving on to the reports, monthly financial report, Trustee Rudolph.
No report this evening. We'll be reviewing that at the September meeting.
Thank you. Under my report, just want to remind trustees that the Illinois Municipal League will be having their annual conference this September from September 19th to the 21st. They have many speakers lined up, speaking on topics of interest not only to elected officials, but staff and clerks as well. So if you are available, I do encourage you to sign up. Our own attorney, Mike Jerusik, will be speaking on making the most of your TIF. And if you'd like to find out about other topics, please go to conference.iml.org to see a full list of topics before you commit. There is a discount for signing up by September 6th, so I encourage you to reach out to either Deputy Clerk Elaine Haskey or Manager Belkme prior to September 6th. Thank you. On July 29th, I attended a statistical review of world energy put on by BP and hosted by the Illinois Commerce Commission. Decarbonizing the public sector is the single most important challenge in the next 20 years, according to the speaker there, Michael Cohen, BP Chief, U.S. Economics. 2018 showed we are moving in the wrong direction. Energy and CO2 emissions are growing at the fastest rate in many years. Much of the increase in demand is tied to weather-related events. We're getting hotter, we're getting colder, so we have to turn on our AC and our heat more often, and globally that's happening. Also, a big part of it is emerging countries, countries just starting to come into industrial states or beyond now have a larger middle class that can afford air conditioning and heat, and that is also contributing to that. He said that reliance on renewables to flatten CO2 emissions is not enough. We need to replace coal-generated power to natural gas, according to him, to positively affect CO2 emissions and break that trend. On a more positive note, though, Manager Belkme and I attended the Illinois Traffic Safety Challenge Awards breakfast with Chief Buds, Deputy Chief Albrecht, also Officer Magnuson, and Police Administrative Services Coordinator Sean O'Connor, who received the award because they received a first place award, and the coordinator, Sean O'Connor, was essential in that he compiled over the year all the information from the department to win this first place prize in their division. It's a very competitive field, so kudos to you, Chief, and to all of your staff for making this a reality. Thank you. I also want to thank Water Plant Superintendent Aaron Duffy, the entire Water Department, and Municipal Services Department for their quick action on this unforeseen and disaster, really, with Well 3. And their quick work and quick action has made this, hopefully, will resolve this situation much sooner than it otherwise might have been. So thanks to them, too. And that concludes my report. Manager Belkme?
Thank you, President Gallagher, and I'd also like to echo your compliments to our Water Department staff and Municipal Services, and actually everyone in this room of staff. They have all been very helpful in this emergency that we have. I'd also like to remind our residents to make sure that they conserve water. It is very important in order to maintain a good quality water. We have been fortunate that we've had some rainstorms, but please make sure that you watch the irrigation usage. That should not be going on right now at all. So, on another note, the tollway, per the village's intergovernmental agreement with the tollway has given notice to the village that work will begin on or about September 3rd. There has been some shoulder work done on the main line, but nothing within the village has commenced with Walsh Construction, which has the job for the BNSF bridge. Utility work was done on Burlington near the Park District offices, but commuters will not be inconvenienced until the 3rd. Also, the Park District has begun work on their tennis courts this week. They've started putting up the fencing and so forth, so. And talked about our wonderful storm that came through, and that concludes my report right now.
Thank you. Village Attorney Jerusik?
Yeah, just briefly, I have a report on the establishment of your downtown TIF district, North Side. This was a project that was started under the prior board. Last February, the board adopted a motion that approved a professional services agreement with your TIF consultant, Teskin Associates, Mike Huffman. Some of you may remember him. He prepared a presentation indicating that in order to move forward with a TIF, you have to evaluate the TIF. And he was hired to do a TIF eligibility report. That's sort of the first step in this process. It lays the groundwork for whether the district that you're proposing to create a TIF within meets the statutory criteria, and there's a number of those criteria. I've provided you with a tentative schedule that sort of maps out, where we started from back on, February 2019, and, takes us through the end of this year. If we hit all these steps and the board is supportive of creating this TIF district, where we're going to go from this point forward will be, we'll have what's called a joint board of review meeting, which you may be familiar with. That's a board that has met a number of times with our current Southside TIF. That board will meet next month. Then we'll have a public hearing before this board in October, and then the board will have to make a determination as to whether you create that TIF by December, by your meeting in December. So you have a tentative schedule that sort of lays out where we have to go. It's important, if the board wants to move forward with this TIF, to have it approved in 2019, because as you know, we pay taxes in arrears. And so approving a TIF in this year will allow us to capture the EAV from 2018. Typically, EAV, at least in this market, is moving up each time everybody builds a house, Timber Trails, another project, another permit gets built, our overall EAV increases. So capturing 2018 EAV as the baseline for our TIF would be most important, as opposed to waiting to 2020 and then capturing the 2019 EAV. I also put in the packet was the draft eligibility report in the TIF project plan from TESCA. As you can see, it's a draft. There's still a little bit of work to be done, but in a nutshell, they have found that all the criteria that are necessary to create a TIF under the TIF standards have been met. And then they have set forth a description of where the TIF district is located, and it really runs north side of the tracks from the Public Works yard, out to the west side of Howard Avenue. And it really hugs very closely along the commercial corridor. There is one or two residential properties that are going to be omitted, that are going to be, it's recommended that those be deleted from the TIF district. Staff will continue to sort of refine that plan in that area. We have to create a legal description that gets filed with Cook County Clerk's Office. We're in the process of doing that. But the goal is this document's really your base draft document that we will really move forward with. And then there was a notice that I gave you, interested parties registry. When you create a TIF, you have to basically create a little register that all your taxing bodies, your overlapping taxing districts, your school districts, park district, et cetera, get to register for notice. And any other person in the community that wants to get notice of the TIF, they get to register on it. So we had to publish a notice in a newspaper. We did that last week to let everybody know that the same register we have that's in existence for the south side of the TIF can be used to register to get notices of the north side TIF activity. So we've taken that next step. And then we provided you with the PowerPoint that Ingrid and I presented at the managers conference earlier this summer to sort of give you an overview of TIF. If Mike Huffman of TESCA was here tonight, he'd run you through most of that PowerPoint, and at least the earlier slides, to give you kind of a TIF 101 about how it works. If anybody does have questions about how it works, we can take a couple minutes, to talk about it. If you do go to the IML conference, you're getting an early bird preview. I am using our speech at that IML presentation on September 20th. I'll be giving that same presentation that you have in your packets tonight. But the schedule's there. We have to hit some of the milestones. There's legal notices that need to, and mailings that have to be done. Staff in my office will handle all of that. You will be invited to attend the Joint Board of Review meeting. It's a body that's made up of representatives from each of the overlapping taxing districts that are impacted by the TIF. President Gallagher chairs that board. We have a public member, Deb Lyons, a resident that sits on that board. Manager Velkme participates in those meetings, and sometimes Grace does as well. The public hearing that's back before the board a couple months from now, that will be a public hearing that Mike Huffman, the TIF consultant, will probably make a presentation. I may say a little bit. Marty may, have some comments to make at that public hearing. But at that public hearing, it's really a public input, process to see, what input we get from the other taxing agencies or any residents or any business, members of the business community. Other than that, that's kind of just a quick summary. If you do have questions, let me know. If not, we will keep moving forward under that schedule that's in your packet. Thanks.
Any questions? Is that it on your report?
And that's the end of my report, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, there being no other business for the open meeting, I'll entertain a motion to recess to closed meetings.
I will make a motion to recess for closed meetings for the purpose of the discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body.
Keep going.
Including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to the specific employee of a public body that is subject to local government wage increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Clerk Horvath, may we have a roll call?
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Chen is absent. Trustee Fink.
Aye.
Trustee John.
Aye.
Trustee Rudolph.
Aye.
Trustee Sifferman.
Aye.
And Trustee Terrell.
Aye.
Thank you. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a closed session. We will open the meeting up again, but only for the purpose of saying good night. So thank you very much for your attendance and your patience. Good evening.